The other night while I was shopping at the local big box store, I happened to wander through their electronics department and came across a number of budget portable turntables sold by the likes of Crosley and Victrola. And there was actually an interesting one that I was really tempted to pick up if it weren't for the price being so high, almost 200 bucks. The Victrola portable turntable that was actually rechargeable and had a shoulder strap. So in essence you could play your records with you on the go, but that was just a bit too rich for me, so I ended up buying this one. This is a Crosley Voyager 3-speed portable turntable with Bluetooth. And by Bluetooth I mean you can use this thing as a glorified Bluetooth speaker and feed audio from your phone to it, although why you would do that I really don't know, because the audio quality really leaves quite a bit to be desired, but I digress. This is the model CR8017A. I'm taking the liberty of unboxing this thing off camera for the sake of brevity. With this they give you an instruction manual, a 100th anniversary card, even though this is not the Crosley of yesteryear. And they also give you the DC power adapter, which is currently plugged into the wall, and an RCA to 3.5mm stereo mini stereo adapter. It's got this simulated leather grain finish on top, which I thought at first was plastic, but soon discovered it isn't. This is just particle board with a glued on, like a peel and stick veneer cover. And you could tell that because there's a couple of areas on here that are scuffed and scraped. But I do like the monochromatic all black appearance that this unit has, with the exception of the silver Crosley logo. And if we look just right, you'll be able to probably see the two stereo speakers on the left and right sides of the grill. There's two latches on the left and right side which hold the lid in place. It's a bit interesting that they went to the trouble of giving you latches for securing it, but not a handle to carry it. I mean, after all, they do refer to this thing as a portable record player. So there's the RCA line outputs, the 3.5mm aux input, and the DC 5V power input. You've got 4 rubber feet on the bottom, and opening the lid reveals a rather dirty mechanism. And I can assure you, I've only had this open out of the box for a few hours now, and I've noticed that in a number of spots it looks like there's water stains and marks everywhere. It's very noticeable right here by the platter. Now I don't know what was going on. Same thing in here. There's like all swipe marks and smudges. So if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say that this mechanism was wiped down with some wet rag before they decided to package this thing up in its box, and it's just been sitting like that ever since. Because if you notice, the tone arm itself is also very smudged and greasy. There's a few fingerprints on it, and those aren't mine either. So as far as the good is concerned, it does have an isolated mechanism, presumably through the use of some kind of rubber dampener to isolate it from the speakers so you don't get too much feedback and resonance going through and feeding back into the stylus and then getting amplified over and over again. You do have a variable speed adjustment pitch control with a center indent, so you know where 0% is. Your volume control, which doubles as a power switch, and a stereo headphone jack. Another plus is the lifting lever for cueing the tone arm is dampened once you release it, so it doesn't just slam the tone arm down onto your priceless vinyl collection. There's also a switch here for going between playback of vinyl phono records or Bluetooth, because if you turn that on, this light turns blue and it'll show up as a Bluetooth device on your phone or tablet. You do get one of those red ceramic cartridges and styli. This one is a sapphire stylus, if memory serves, with a plastic cantilever, so it's not even metal. Another plus, I'm going back and forth here, but bear with me, is a switch for turning off and on the auto start-stop of the mechanism. So if you've got a particularly troublesome LP or a 45 or an EP that's triggering the auto stop prematurely, you can just turn that off, and then it'll just act like a non-auto stop mechanism. And there's also a switch right there to change between 33, 45, and 78 revolutions per minute. Near as I can tell, there is no adjustment that can be made to the counterweight. In fact, there is no user serviceable or accessible counterweight. You can see that this thing tracks at just shy of 6 grams. I'm no audiophile, but I would definitely say that's erring on the excessive side of things. Another minor gripe I have is this post that the tone arm rests on when not in use. Would it have killed them to extend up these little, I don't even know what you would call them, but these 3 little sections of the post, just enough so that it actually held the tone arm in a little bit more than it currently does? Because as it stands right now, it's very easy just to bump the thing and have the tone arm go flying. However, there is a latching mechanism for safekeeping. Now here's a 45 I know isn't going to be in YouTube's Content ID database. It's some kind of a self-help 45 about marriage from the perspective of the ticks, the tacks, and the toes. You turn this switch on, and since I have the auto mode enabled on the mechanism, I can just lift it up and it'll start playing.
Welcome to another evening with the ticks, the tacks, and the toes. Today's episode, As the Table Turns. Mr. Tick feels lousy after a hard day's work. But you'd never know it. He always wears a happy face.
And when he's happy, Mrs. Tick is happy too.
He can't stand succotash, but Mrs. Tick will never know.
Alright, trying to win the award for the most obscure music that I can play without fear of copyright issues. And this is off the Folkcraft label. This is actually some square dancing music or something like that. And I'll put the 45 RPM adapter on. Switch this to 45 and begin playback.
Right hand to your partner. He ran right at left.
While this is multitasking, I just use my phone to record a snippet of the song that I'm playing right now, which I'm going to upload to YouTube as a test to see if their Content ID picks up on it, because this seems like a really obscure label and song. Twin Lakes Records, Coroner Corner. Never heard of these guys before, so it'll be interesting to see if it gets flagged for copyright on YouTube. Now I'm going to really test my luck with YouTube and give you some direct hookups.
In the wall, pull out the door. There's a colt on the floor, and it's so cold and bright. Just lay down the wall, follow me. I'll take you inside.
Mr. Tick is broke, but Mrs. Tick will never know. Coffee, dear? Mrs. Tick will never know what makes him tick at all.
And so by playing those samples for you, I hope you were able to pick up on the quality. And one thing I could certainly say is that playing the records through either headphones or using an external set of speakers is definitely the way to go if you care about audio quality. These speakers are really rather lacking. There is stereo separation, but they're very mid-range heavy. Not too much treble, and of course absolutely no bass to speak of whatsoever. And I actually was giving the cartridge and stylus a bad rap, believe it or not, because of the way it sounded through the built-in speakers. But just listening to the last couple of samples of the records that I was playing directly hooked up to the camcorder using headphones, and I gotta say, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. It's not on par with a highfalutin, Audio-Technica or a Project turntable or something like that, but definitely could hold its own. It's not the worst I've heard, and I mean, I am a little concerned about that 6-gram tracking force. That's really borderline excessive, and the stylus itself is undoubtedly very cheap, but still sounded pretty acceptable. The inside of the cabinet almost looks like something spilled all over the place. I'm wondering if that was some kind of a spray adhesive they used for this veneer, because that's not wet, that is actually dry. And then this is the underside of the mechanism, and the motor does have 2 trimmer adjustments for the speed, but I don't see a third one, so I'm wondering how you adjust all 3 speeds with this thing, unless one of the 3 is permanently fixed and is not adjustable. And then you've got this little board here that the output from the tone arm gets fed into, and it's also responsible for the auto stop, supplying power to the motor. And then from there it jumps through this board, through one of these cables, over to this, which this is the main circuit board that does everything, like a system on a chip almost. So this is the power supply, the amplifier, the Bluetooth receiver. Everything is done through this thing. This is the switch for the Bluetooth and the phono modes. They just globbed on the hot glue everywhere. And the only thing that's really securing this this board in place is the trimmers up top, or the knobs up top for the volume and the pitch control. And then just globs and globs of hot glue everywhere. And I like how they installed the LED status light as well. They just extended the leads of it to go right directly onto the board. They just soldered it directly. There's no wire, nothing. And I almost just dropped the camera in there. So that's going to do it for my review of this Crosley Voyager portable turntable. It's decent and actually sounds rather acceptable to my ears, at least when you're using the headphone output or the RCA outputs. But if you're going to be using the built-in speakers, really be prepared to be let down. They're very tinny, mid-range heavy. There is stereo separation there, but if you just want to squeeze the best possible quality you can out of a cheap turntable such as this with a cheap cartridge and stylus, then I'd highly suggest you getting maybe the model below this one that is actually like $10 or $15 cheaper last I checked. Doesn't come with the built-in speakers, but again, you don't need them if you actually want good quality and you're going to be using this thing with an external stereo system of some description. So not bad, but definitely be careful, and that 6-gram tracking force is mildly concerning. Be nice if there was an easy way to adjust that down, but I'm sure that cartridge probably has to track that much. So that's my review of the Crosley Voyager turntable.